All right, welcome to the new JFK Show number 223. Tonight we're going to have Larry Rivera give us a presentation, and it's all about the cubbyhole. I did save the JPEGs. I'm sure you might have had them already, but I took a few pictures in Dealey Plaza, so if you want me to pull them up, I have them handy about the cubbyhole. And so we're going to turn it over to Larry. We got Jim Fetzer with us tonight, and if we have time, I would like to talk about Sam Holland and the triple overpass. And I took a few videos and I described what I believe really happened there and why the railroad men did not see anyone. All right, so go ahead, Larry.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight? Well,
congratulations, Larry, who's newly married.
Yes, absolutely.
Facebook has been inundated by a lot of chatter on Facebook, but anyway.
Well, you got a huge responsibility with this new stepson of yours. So I know he's in good hands. I have a feeling by the time he's out of high school, he'll know a thing or two about JFK.
Or maybe he'll think his stepfather is nuts.
I don't think so.
One of the things about doing JFK research is what we like to do is go down to Dealey Plaza and look around, and explore and do what we call field work, which both you, Jim, and I have done, repeatedly in the past. And it's funny because a lot of times, some of these people that talk about the assassination, you ask them, have you been down to Dealey Plaza? And they say, no, I've never been there. You go, really? And I'm not going to name any names or anything like that or throw anybody under the bus here, but it's kind of funny, that they would try to, hypothesize and, talk about the assassination and trajectories and whatever, without even having ever been down there. I remember the first time I went to Dealey Plaza was October of 1991. And I was at a convention, actually a networking convention at the time. I was going to school, for in the profession of networking, when computer networking was just starting to become the thing at the time. Networking PCs and computers and everything, and they used to have a NetWorld convention over at the convention center. And I decided to go down to Dealey Plaza, and took a cab, and I was dropped off at Houston, but on the other side of the depository, as I was walking, that would be south, in the direction of south on Houston, and suddenly I was there, at the corner of the depository building, Houston and Elm, and it was quite a feeling there, so such a mystical feeling, to be there, and I was such in awe, of Dealey Plaza. And the first thing, Jim and Gary, that came to my mind was how small it was,
Yeah.
I don't know what, how you guys, first time you ever went down there, what's your
impression?
Yeah, your first impression was. But anyway, I started taking pictures and, looking around and stuff, like everybody does, and went into the entrance, went over there where Mary Mormon stood, and went behind the fence and, went over where Zapruder was, and that was my the first time that I was exposed, to Dealey Plaza. At the time, there wasn't very many people there at all, really, I guess the pilgrimage, that you see nowadays, did not exist. And so, every time that you go there, that I go there, we're always looking for, different aspects, different angles, and trying to see, how we can improve, on what we already know. And obviously, there's been a lot of change there regarding the landmarks, but basically the topography, remains the same. So that's where, all of our stuff, with Blender and everything, comes in, where we're able to go and look at old maps, the old maps that Robert Cutler
Yes. Hey, can I get the screen share real quick, Larry? Just want to show something real fast.
Okay, you want me to stop? Okay, go ahead.
Just real quick. Here we go. Wonder if we recognize this boy here. You see it?
No.
Okay, I got to hit share. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
There's that boy right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
When was that taken?
93. 93?
91, the first time I went down there. That's
yeah,
right.
boy, he's a dashing young man at the time.
Yeah. Where'd you get that?
If you type in Larry Rivera into Google and you put JFK, you get a lot of stuff. I mean,
man, somebody posted that. It might have been Ralph, you know, because I remember passing that around. Wow, that's yeah.
I used that picture in a video, a couple of your videos before. In
Yeah.
fact, the very first one about the Santa Barbara conference, I used that picture in your video.
Yeah, and that was the first time actually that I went down there, you know, and you know, it's like I said, it's quite an experience, you know, and then nowadays, you know, it's sort of been commercialized, you know, you see all those kiosks there, you know, and you see what's his name over there behind, you know, over there behind the grassy knoll, you know, setting up shop, you know, with his cohorts over there and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So
yeah, I got a video of that.
yeah, I'm sure. So, and the, what do they call it? The tours, you know, the people peddling tours and whatever, you know, sort of commercializing, you know, such a historic event. But anyway, the shot from the front is what brings us here tonight. And this is, I explained this in a chapter 17 of the JFK Horseman. And where I incorporate, you know, all of our research, the research that we did in November 2014, and a lot of the other stuff that we've done with Blender, you know, and so and I think one of the most important early researchers that we have spoken about regarding the layout of Dealey Plaza has to be Robert Cutler. You know, who's been forgotten mostly. You know, he published, I think we've mentioned this before, he used to publish a little periodical, a journal called the Grassy Knoll Gazette, all right? And which is a very catchy, you know.
Yeah. Without him, the Blender would not be possible. Is that correct?
Well, the way that we have it, because, you know, we have mentioned it so many times that we use his map as a reference image to lay out, you know, all of our objects, you know, the Elm Street, you know, the buildings, you know, the people and everything. Not the people, but the lampposts as they were on November 22nd. I don't know if you guys have noticed.
Keeps moving. It keeps moving.
Well, you can actually see the fresh cement there where the old lamppost was removed and then moved over inside the grass there, you know, where before it used to be right at the curb. And Jim, I'm sure you have your ideas of why, you know, they moved the lampposts, especially when you research the Zapruder film. So, you know, maybe you can give us some kind of idea why they did that.
Well, they're doing their best to make it impossible to reconstruct what happened. I mean, everything about this has been because of the two causes of our 35th president, and, you know, they've done one thing after another. As John Costello discovered when they put the Stemmons Freeway sign back in, and we had Rick Russo showing photographs of a bullet hole through the Stemmons sign. They did not put it in properly, and you've a sensational GIF showing how much it was improperly placed. That's just one of many, many things they have done in moving physical features, allowing the asphalt on Elm Street to build up, or among other maneuvers they have made to obfuscate or make it impossible to reconstruct what happened.
Including the doorway in the Texas School Book, the Bot Story. That's another one.
Perfect example.
Yeah, that's one. I think that's one of the most egregious ones. But also, You know, in between the tunnels, there used to be a cement platform there as the infield reduces and it comes down like into a knife there. They eliminated that precisely where the bullet struck that hit James Tague in the cheek. So you can't even go there and examine, you know, that cement there because they removed it and they replaced it with grass, you know. So even that, and the only way that we know that is because of Cutler's maps, you know. So anyway,
there's video of a Mexican guy cutting it out and throwing it in the truck, and they drove off with it with the curb.
Oh, that's the curb. That's the curb. But you know why that happened? Because Harold Weisberg sued the FBI and the National Archives to examine the remains because of neutron activation analysis there to examine the copper remains there on the curb to verify if it matched, you know, the Carcano slugs. And I think he was in litigation with the government for maybe a decade, you know, over that piece of curb. And then finally, when they said, okay, you can have it, then, you know, it disappeared, you know, like all other evidence here, you know.
Well, because Mannlicher Carcano ammunition was made of reprocessed lead, it turns out that neutron activation is completely unreliable in the instance of that specific ammunition because it's totally non-uniform in its composition. So you make a nice point, Larry, too. Of course, the government, once again, when there appeared to be an advance in research that they're going to suddenly disappear the evidence. I mean, how bad is that?
Yeah. And I think Harold is very eloquent, you know, when he talks about it in The Men Who Killed Kennedy. You know, I think it's I think it's even the first or second chapters. You know, and actually we're gonna talk a little bit about a couple of the witnesses that came out in subsequent episodes of The Men Who Killed Kennedy and Nigel Turner, because they talk about what we're going to talk about here, which is a shot from the front. And the shot that went through the windshield and struck JFK, you know, right below the Adam's apple, you know, nicked his tie and everything, you know. And then after that, Malcolm Perry did that tracheostomy, you know, so that he could breathe. And then later on, it was obliterated there. It was expanded, and God knows when or where. We have our theories on that, you know, on how, you know, all of a sudden it became that bolts.
Well, bear in mind that Humes actually called Bob Livingston that night and asked him what it would look like if it had been a wound of exit instead of a wound of entry. Bob described it, and I'm convinced Humes used Bob's description as his guide in altering the throat wound. After all, if he'd already taken a cranial saw to the skull of JFK to enhance the fist-size blowout, there's nothing he would not have done to the body to conform to the dictates of the higher military authorities, not to mention the political who were controlling his every move.
Yeah, and all this also follows in what we had our previous show, you know, with Hubie Clark. And everything that he witnessed that night, you know, with the shell game, you know, with the caskets and everything, and you know when that body might have, you know, made that first stop there at Walter Reed, you know, for preliminary work, you know, and that kind of thing. So anyway, this the stuff here that we're gonna cover, you know, it's in the book. You know, but I haven't put it up on the blog here, and I figured since Gary was there, you know, a couple of weeks ago, right, Gary?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Saints got slaughtered by Dallas.
Yeah.
Larry, are those Cutler's own notes right here, or are those yours?
What?
The throat shot through the windshield. Who wrote those?
Oh, those are Cutler's. That's Cutler.
Those are Cutler's notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fascinating. This is a great little document you've got here.
Yeah. And that's his own little drawing. Okay. And this is fascinating stuff because,
He's got it from inside the triple underpass just like we did, Larry.
Actually, he's on the top of the overpass.
Okay, and we're inside the overpass.
We're inside. That's the only. He's got the angle right. Okay?
Larry, that's sensational.
Yeah,
that is sensational.
Yeah, he's got the angle perfect. And that's what we're gonna talk about here. If you want to go ahead and
yeah, he had his magazines. This was from one of his magazines.
Well, this is published by Jerry Rose, the great Jerry Rose,
Third decade, yeah.
Yeah, he maintained the third and fourth decade, for 20 years, which I think is just an incredible.
Just as an aside, when I conducted the Chauncey Marvin Holt Symposium with his daughter, Jerry Rose was in the audience, and Karen proved to be so adept at using photographs from the family album and transposing them and so forth, overplacing them, that during the question period, he raised his hand, and I was convinced he was going to express skepticism. Instead, he said, I've always believed it was E. Howard Hunt, but after this presentation, I'm now convinced that it was indeed Chauncey Marvin Holt. That was Jerry Rose.
Well, also Jerry Rose doesn't get a lot of credit, as time passes, people sort of like forget, his all the work that he did, and it's just, if you go and you look at the third decade, and every year, every publication, every volume, every each and every one of those, he actually wrote some kind of article in each one of those. Or it was very seldom that a volume would pass by, where he wouldn't write something, and some of the stuff, that he researched, and that he put together was just, mind-boggling, Jim. People should really look at that as a perfect example, of the stamina required, and he kept it up, throughout for the fourth decade. And then after that, I understand that he quietly retired in Florida somewhere. But anyway.
Well, maybe you'll run into him down there, Larry, as a new resident of Florida yourself.
Yeah. Hey, you were talking about Howard Weisberg. I like to use him as an example of a man who had to sue the government at great expense to obtain documents that we can Google in just a matter of seconds now. So I always like to use him as an example about that.
Yeah. So this is it was submitted by Cutler, and this was in response to an article that somebody wrote in the third decade, and we just simply drew what the trajectory, especially taking into account that the throat wound happens at Z208 between 208 and 210 when the limo is behind the sign, the Stemmons Freeway sign. Another thing, I believe those frames had disappeared and then they were brought back into the film, but the sprocket hole area, has been obliterated, much like we saw in a couple of weeks ago when we did the frames 155 to 158. Remember, Varsity,
they're really blatant about it too. They just do it. If they don't want you to see it, it's gone. Now you see it, now you don't.
Yeah, and what better proof than what we provided? What was it, a month ago when we did the show about, remember, frames 155 to 158, where the Varsity, the Secret Service car of LBJ, is lifted off of the pavement. And
Yes.
And you can literally see that edit wave line going right through across, the frame and everything.
Robert Groden insists that film is authentic.
Yeah, and then we mentioned, how the sprocket holes to the left, and some are completely the data, the imaging, the images or ghost images, whatever you want to call them, completely gone. And then on some of them, that you can see half, and then others you can see the whole thing. But the same thing happens, in 208 to 210, where that's where we hypothesize that JFK is hit, in the throat. I don't know what your take is on that, Jim. Where do you think the throat wound happened? Because here, Cutler, and I agree with Cutler, it happens, as you can see, between, he says here, 208 to 211. And
well, we know you can see it in the windshield in 224, so we know it's prior to 224.
yeah,
You got
before
18 frames per second by the official count. I think it was actually running at 24, which was an actual setting on the camera, and that the 18.3 occurred because of removal of excessive frames at Hawkeye work in Rochester. I think 210 is probably a very good guess, but remember, I mean, the numbering and so forth, that's just in relation to when it occurred in relation to the multiples. Yeah.
In the film, yeah. Yeah. And again, I think this is key in the whole analysis, the topography and how Elm Street, you know, is laid out in that little gentle S curve, you know, and we're going to see, you know, as we proceed here, how the cars, when you go into underneath the triple overpass here on the south knoll, the cars are virtually completely at a standstill.
Yeah, they're coming right at you. In fact, I have video of that. I had to take a video of that as the cars come right towards the cubby hole, that they're stationary for just a moment.
Completely. I mean, they look like they're not even moving. You know, when you go over there and you look at that, you know, that's what's so amazing about it.
A trained assassin would be able to just pick that apart from that distance.
Yeah. So anyway,
target.
Cutler here is talking about he's using the article's logic. You know, a bullet went through the windshield, a bit left of center, nicked sick. The left side of the president's tie damaged the left side of the trachea scar at Elm Street after exiting the neck. I don't know about that.
Right. I don't know about that either. No. Bob Livingston, now, world authority on the human brain, told me he believed it hit bone and it fractured. That part went upward and ruptured this tough membrane that covers the cerebellum called the tentorium, part downward into the lung. And there was, in fact, bruising found in the lung, which I believe occurred when the pathologist Walter Reed removed the lead fragment from JFK's lung.
Yeah, what he's trying to explain is apparently there is some kind of nick there on the Elm Street on the sidewalk, which I had never on Elm Street on the street or whatever. I had never heard about that myself.
That would have required going all the way through his neck and continuing out to the roadway, which of course did not occur.
And maybe even going through the seat, you know, behind JFK.
I mean, David plotted the trajectory from behind forward, but cervical vertebrae would have intervened had it been from forward back. Yeah. So it would have been anatomically impossible in either direction.
Yeah, the same analysis, exactly. So you also know the shot came at between 208 to 211, not from the grassy knoll, okay, but from ahead and left of the limousine. I think that's key.
Yeah, he's a very smart guy, highly intelligent, very disciplined, and extremely knowledgeable.
No, he's an architect. You know, he's dealing with, you know, lines, and he's dealing with measurements, and he's dealing with empirical data. You know, so you know, you do not know the caliber of the bullet nor where the shooter stood, knelt, or lay prone. Okay, I agree with that. The limousine is sketched at 210 from windshield to necktie to M. The bullet's flight path is a solid line. Okay, and that's behind. This is here where, and that's taking into account that it went through JFK, which we obviously do not believe that to have happened. Okay, from the gun position to the windshield, it's a dotted line. That is completely verifiable.
Right. That coincides with us, except he's putting it on the top and we're inside the
the vertical plane is what is different there. Okay. This allows you to place a shooter in Dealey Plaza and have him fire your choice of bullet. And if this be research, give me the lunatic fringe on any day or night. Ahimsa. I found that kind of, you know, ahimsa is Hindu, okay? And I have a definition down here. But before that, Cutler clearly understood the topography and layout of Dealey Plaza. That is why in our Blender 3D model, I have used his map as an essential reference image. We've talked about that. in this diagram, Cutler estimated, and I agree, that the throat shot occurred between the Zapruder frames to 208, 211. The shot went through the windshield before striking JFK. This part here we already read. And ahimsa, and just as a parenthesis here, respect for all living things and avoidance of violence towards others, non-harmfulness or harmlessness, to not wish harm or to any living creature.
Is this a Buddhist saying? Or?
Yes, apparently, yeah. Not even to any lifeless object. Ahimsa is about the intent rather than the action itself. Is an attitude of universal benevolence. I guess, you know, he wanted to express an idea there. So anyway, here again, the diagram. And I think, yeah, Jim can pick it up here. Yeah.
Oh, here's a shot I took from the triple overpass in our 2014 road tour, where we, Jim, Gary, and I drove from New Orleans to Dallas for the 51st observance of the assassination. At that time, I dubbed this position the cubby hole. Note that the S-curve of Elm Street makes cars stay stationary for at least 2 to 3 seconds as they negotiate the downslope. For a professional sniper, this is like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah, this is an actual photograph that I took, you know, back in 2014, you know. And,
yeah, very nice, very nice, very nice.
And I want to mention that James Norwood, okay, mentioned that if you plot this line of sight straight back, it lines up perfectly with the fire escape of the second floor of the Daltex building. So there was another setup of a crossfire, you know, from that position as well, Jim. I found that pretty interesting. That's why.
Yes. Well, he was a smart guy. I couldn't believe how he betrayed the Oswald Innocence campaign, but he made contributions of one kind or another. He actually invited me into his class to give a lecture on the assassination when he was teaching at Twin Cities campus of the University of Minnesota.
Well, he uses your book, Jim.
Yeah, he was using, right?
It happens more often.
He was using Murder in Dealey Plaza.
Yeah, and JFK and the Unspeakable. I mean, what better two books than those two, you know?
So, Larry, you still chair of the Oswald Innocence campaign?
Yeah, you know, just as a figurehead, you know, whatever, you know, there's not much to do there.
Wow. Yeah, my wood turned on us.
Ralph's like the business manager. Here's my blender representation of that position showing the exact same view of oncoming cars on Elm Street.
And this is according to a Z255. I just wanted to, so the position of the cars would be, you know, further up Elm Street, a little farther away from the view. Okay, but basically what we're trying to do is to match, okay, the two views. As you can see, the S, you know, the S formation of Elm Street and everything, and how the infield. And this is what I wanted to mention about changing the landscape. You see how this part of the infield is grass?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the original, it's not grass. This part here was cement. You see this?
I did not know that.
So this is why the Cutler's map is so important, because in Cutler's map, and if you go and you look at aerial photographs of Dealey Plaza, this area here is cement. So what they did, and this is the area where that bullet, you know, that hit James Tague, this is where it hit. All right. So this is another one of those surreptitious changes there in Dealey Plaza, you know, that, and that's why, you know, when we construct this scene, you know, this 3D Dealey Plaza, you know, you start to realize all the changes. Again, here, as you can see, the lamppost, but over here, well, you can't really notice here, but the lamppost over here is moved, you know, inside almost at the grass line, okay? See, they're not at the curb as they are, you know, And on November 22nd, 1963, you see the lampposts are right at the curb. And that's what we were talking about earlier. Now let's talk about the windshield.
We cannot discuss the shot from the front without bringing up the windshield of the JFK limousine. The presence of a bullet hole in the windshield of the limousine was witnessed at Parkland Hospital by motorcycle patrolman Sergeant Stavis Ellis, James Cheney, and Harry Freeman. And we had a SMU med student, Evala Glanges, also, where she reports as follows. But it was very clear it was a through and through bullet hole through the windshield of the car from the front to the back. No way there's any cracks, even any cracks associated with that bullet hole. It seemed like a high velocity bullet that had penetrated from front to back in that glass pane.
And that's important because, Jim, remember those other pictures that we've seen of the windshield with the crack, spiraling?
Yeah, that was a third windshield, Larry.
Right, I know.
Jim Lewis has been going through junkyards in the South and firing high-velocity bullets through windshields to see if he could hit a dummy in the back, and finds that passing through it makes the same small spiral white nebula with a dark hole in the center as we see in the Ultron 6, and makes a sound of a firecracker passing through, which, of course, many witnesses reported that what they took to be the first shot sounded different than the others. It sounded like a firecracker.
And also this Valia Glanges, which you can see in The Men Who Killed Kennedy, a totally credible witness. And at the time, she went and she told Crenshaw about what she had seen, and Crenshaw reported to the Secret Service, and Crenshaw reports how the Secret Service guy who he told, totally freaked out and got all nervous, because of that, knowing that she had witnessed,
right.
what you're going to see here.
Of course, that was something they had to cover up.
Yeah.
We get George Whitaker, Nigel Turner, in his documentary, The Men Who Killed Kennedy, identified George Whitaker Sr. as the Ford Motor Company official mentioned in Douglas Weldon's work. That's in Murder in Dealey Plaza. Yeah. Douglas Horn, in his book, Inside the ARB, on page 1447, also identified Whitaker as the employee who witnessed the condition of the windshield, verified the hole had been caused by a shot from the front, with fragmentation and beveling present on the inside. Shards of this fragmentation, called stripling, were known to have struck the president in the face and neck. These were later removed and its effects covered with wax during the process of embalming and preparation of the body for burial. That was what David Mantik figured out when he read Thomas Evan Robinson's description of these small shrapnel wounds to the face that he had to pack with wax because they were leaking embalming fluid. David inferred that was from the small, tiny shards of glass when the bullet passed through the windshield. Quite brilliant.
Yeah, and a researcher by the name of Anthony DeFiore, who I cite in some of his work in my book, also noticed that in one of the Zapruder frames, you can see Kellerman reacting to some of that stripling hitting him in the face as well, and him, reacting and touching his face, at the time. That's something that he's been credited with in his research of finding.
Isn't there a document saying that there was glass in the president's face?
That's what Jim's talking about. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Thomas Evan Robinson even writes about it in his report, and Jim has published it many times.
Right. Was there enough clearance? This super close-up of the Cancelliere photograph shows the area in question had ample clearance to allow a shot without any cars interfering.
Yeah, this is where we have been, okay, and providing that perhaps the asphalt, has risen, over time or whatever, but at the time, as you can see, in fact, I figured that this would have been even a better position, because if you had cars that, as you know, that the cars that stopped on Commerce there in Maine for the parade, so that would have even given the sniper there even more cover. Obviously, those guys don't even need, that much clearance, to get their shot in, So I found this interesting, in looking and zooming into the Cancelara photograph there. And I'm going to show you what the Cancelara photograph looks like. That's this one, okay? And I posted it here for a different reason, which we're going to look into now, because a lot of people believe that shot came from the South Knoll, yes, but from the upper South Knoll where this tree is located here. We're going to zoom in there, and we'll pick it up right here, the Cancelara hypothesis.
Some researchers have posited the hypothesis that a sniper can be seen in one of the Cancelara photographs in the background with this image of a man with what appears to be a rifle can be seen.
Okay, you see this tree here? Right. This is the area, okay, and this was presented, actually, Rick Russo presented this a couple of weeks ago.
I'll tell you something. Ed Tatro has shown me a photograph where you can see him much more distinctly holding the rifle. There's no doubt about it.
And that's what this is right here. I've blown it up.
Ed's photograph, the figure is much more distinct than this, Larry.
And you know something? And I agree, because you can see the shadow here and also the shadow of something in his hand.
Yeah, I don't know why Tatro hasn't shared it, but he's that way, I mean, when we take a look at the view from that position in our Blender model, this is what is seen.
Okay, so we went and we put a camera up there, okay, and this is the view from there. Now, the shot from the front is approximately here where LBJ's car is, okay? Now, if that were the position of the shot from the front, it would have been more of an angle.
Yeah, it would have gone on to the book depository. It wouldn't have hit Jack.
Well, not only that.
Larry, did you pick up on this? David Mantic talked about a third shot to the head that entered the forehead that appears to have been fired from this position.
Yeah, I know he's got the three arrow, the red, the yellow, and the green, which is in his book. But this angle here, if this were the position of the JFK limo at 210,
right?
Okay, let's just work. It wouldn't work because the angle is too pronounced here. The angle from the windshield to the throat is not that large of an angle as this that we see here. So going back up here, yeah, this is an anomaly here that cannot be explained. It's got to be somebody. Maybe we're talking about another shooter, okay? But I have to disagree regarding that. This is the shot. This is the position of the shot of the windshield and throat.
Agreed completely, Larry.
So and this is where
geometry is wrong.
Right. The trajectory, the line of sight is wrong, and this is where Blender helps us, in visualizing that.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, can you show the picture again that you zoomed in on real quick?
Yeah, here. Right here.
Yeah, but the one before that.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the area, okay? And this is a more of a blow up, and then this is the final blow up right here. And this is the man. Definitely something going on here. You know? Definitely.
As I say, Tatro has a better photograph of this shooter with a rifle.
Now, listen here. When I put a camera here in this position, right next to the tree trunk in Blender, okay, and pan back towards the other way, this is what we see. All right. Now I'll just leave it up to
Well, this has to be the third shot to the head that David has described, which has taken me so long to sort out. That so that now we get the shot from the right front actually enters the right temple, but it is tangential, just as Crenshaw described, and is a shot that blew out the Harper fragment. But this shot now goes into the front of the forehead and blasts brains out the back of that wound as well. So, I mean, these have to be virtually simultaneous.
Well, you know about the Father Huber, okay? Father Huber, when he gave the last rites, okay, he gives Shirley Martin an interview a year after for the first anniversary. Shirley goes, and she went to church there and she attended mass and everything. And he gave her an interview, in his office, at the church. And he talked about a hole of entry right about where you're talking about, Jim. And he talks about, clotted blood and everything. So, Shirley goes and she publishes this. And then they come back to Father Huber and they say, you gave an interview and you said this and this and that. And so Father Huber denies it. So what happened is that Shirley put a tape recorder in her daughter Vicky's purse, and she recorded the interview.
I love it.
We love Shirley. Shirley on the cakes.
I love it.
Yeah, and so what happened after that, So anyway.
Even though this image at Z255 in the Algen 6 photograph, the angle of the windshield to JFK's neck does not line up with this shooting location understood. Right. The next image is of the utility box located precisely adjacent to the cubbyhole position, which Roy Schaefer has pointed out as the most possible, probably should be plausible location for a sniper to have executed the throat shot.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
And of course, the three of us have been there.
Right.
Professor Jim Fetzer posed that the location believed to have been the position of the sniper who shot JFK through the windshield and throat. Nice and cozy, well protected, and out of view. This is when I did not yet get my torn rotator cuff repaired.
Yeah. This is such an amazing position to be in. It's just, I just can't, and all the people that we take down there, right, Gary? They just look at that. I went there with Ray Hale. He went over there. He took video. He said, "Man, I can't believe if this has been overlooked. We got to give Roy all the credit on this because he's the one that sent us in that direction." And then Gary went over there the other day because we were talking about and hypothesizing about this right here. This is so convenient. And at the time that we went there, they had a padlock on it, right?
Right.
But then Gary went down there, and guess what?
No padlock.
You've missed the text here. I was going to pick it up.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
This next photo was taken by Gary King a couple of days ago showing the inner dimensions of the utility box. Roy Schaefer's hypothesis is this was way too convenient a spot where a weapon could have been stashed away after the deed, and I cannot agree more.
And then the shooter just walked right into the crowd and mix among them and basically disappear.
The dimensions. I mean, you could have stashed, how many weapons in there?
But you could put a bazooka in there.
Thompson machine gun.
And that what we realized when we went there also, that tunnel that goes one side to the other. All you had to do was put one cop on each side. Or one.
Nobody was getting in there, and also the cars going by, if there were any, would be they would not see you because
that's right. They're shielded, by these columns. That's right.
Yeah.
It's so convenient. I mean, it's just scary. Look at that. See, it's what we were talking about here.
Yeah. Let me get the share real quick. I'm gonna show you a couple of pictures.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Such good stuff, Larry.
Thanks. Well, again, you have to go down there and do your homework,
Which we have done.
Yeah. Many times.
All right, so there gives you a little bit of perspective right there. You can see in the Dealey Plaza, and let's see, hold on. This one here, you can see the president will be coming this way. And then, of course, the one.
Leave that. Gary, leave that one. I want to show you something. You know what? You see that corner there with the where it goes across to the right there, to the right and vertical right there with a column. Can you point there? I can't.
Like right here?
Yeah. No. Left. Right there. Now go down. Right there. That L there. That is such a convenient place to just place.
You would have required a left-hand shooter, Larry.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't it doesn't matter.
No, I don't think so. We knelt down right there, and it's a perfect armrest
Yeah.
where you have a perfect shot to just lay your rifle down. None of stuff.
Nice.
But
that position is perfect. Perfect.
Nice.
Right. And then to just walk around right here, and then you blend in with the crowd, and then lock the gun right in here, put a padlock on it.
Yeah.
It was just too easy.
Way too easy. Way too easy.
And I like to use this one here. Of course, they have the pyramid on top of Dealey Plaza.
That's the view from there. That's the view from there, right?
That's right. We have to have some Masonic symbols in the vicinity.
Oh, absolutely. I love it.
You can see here, as the president would be coming down from the cubbyhole, you have several seconds of a stationary target right there.
And notice the position of the lamppost, Gary, that I was talking about.
Yeah.
And look at the other one over here. Closer.
Well, you know, Larry, they probably played an additional role in aligning the limousine and the lamppost and sequencing the shots. I'm willing to bet that's another reason they moved the lamppost, was that they had a role in signaling or timing the sequence of shots.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, that's
option 7.
Mm-hmm.
Which we believe to be fabricated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's on a pedestal. It's mounted in Dealey Plaza. Kathy was asking me about that, who was also blown away when I showed her the cubbyhole, and I kind of went through the shooter who would take the shot, have an armrest, put it in, and walk around. Everyone always drops their jaw when they It's like, how ingenious is that?
Very good. Very good.
Yeah. I mean, I just cannot fathom, how people can continue to, propagate, a theory or whatever that the shot from that came through the windshield in the throat came from the grassy knoll. It's just impossible. Doesn't work. The vector, the angle just does not work. And it's just geometry. A surveyor, whatever, would be able to.
So that's all you got?
Did you have something you wanted to show?
Yeah, sure did. Go ahead and hit pause, Dr. Professor, real quick.
Go.
All right. What I'd like to talk about is Sam Holland and his viewpoint with the railroad men. This is a video that I took, and I'm kind of commenting along the way, so we'll just go ahead and play it. And this is what I believe happened as far as the railroad men, because every time I've ever been to Dealey Plaza, I stand where they are. And when they saw the puff of smoke and all the men began to run around there, there's just no time to get away. And I could never figure out why they didn't see a shooter behind the fence. But Larry and I have discussed that before, because there wasn't one. So let me go ahead and play that, and we'll talk about it. Okay, I can never pass up an opportunity to show you the people involved rubbing it right in your face. You can see the pyramid clearly over Dealey Plaza. It's the same way in Memphis with Martin Luther King. There's a pyramid that's part of a casino, but that's just one thing. Now, I want to show everyone and take them through what I believe happened here as far as the shooters getting away. Number one, this is where Sam Holland was standing along with his other railway workers. And as the president was coming by, they heard a shot. But I can clearly see behind the picket fence, you can see where the gunman would have been. So they saw a puff of smoke. They all began running towards this way.
Hey, it's Crowden.
At this point, after only a few steps of running fast, you would have been able to see any gunman running. So what I believe, they saw the puff of smoke, and everyone came running up the steps towards where they thought the shots came from, but they didn't. But where they did come from is right here. It's a drain. Dr. Fetzer just pointed this out to me, right? And if you look exactly where this point is,
it appears to be where Frank Sturge was fired.
You can also clearly see the President of the United States. and a clear pathway to get out. All right, so as they were running around this way, the railway men, as they went up a corner and looked, they said they saw footprints and cigarette butts, but they didn't see anything else. That's because the gunman was not here.
But he could have got into a car, a vehicle, a trunk, what have you.
Well, what about what's his name? Hoffman. What about what Hoffman saw?
Ed Hoffman. Yeah.
Ed Hoffman.
Yeah, exactly. Just like that. Now, I have another one here. It's about the
pause.
Yeah, real quick.
Oh.
All right, Larry, tell me if I'm standing in the right spot as far as where Lee Oswald would have been. Just let me know. All right, so here we are at the famous Texas County Administration, formerly the Texas School Book Depository. So I'm going to go ahead and walk up and stand as closely as I can to where Lee Oswald was standing at that time. Okay, go ahead.
And he almost got knocked over by a car.
A little more to the left.
So how are we looking, Larry? Am I in the right spot?
A little bit more to the left. You're more like where Billy was.
A little more to the left as we look at you. More right. From your position, yeah.
Right.
All right. I'm going to show this one real quick. We don't have to stop. Now, another reason we believe this was a diversionary shot is because back here is where Lee Bowers was standing in the control tower. He did say that he saw some sort of flash or some sort of commotion. However, he never said he saw a gunman. He did say he saw motorcycle officers running up the grassy knoll. However, it just makes too much sense that he saw the flash or some sort of commotion, and it was right here. And we're going to go over to the railroad track and show you why I believe that I've had an epiphany on this whole thing. Actually, that was not. Yeah, that was out of sequence. But what I want to talk about is Larry. We've always said that puff of smoke had to be a diversionary shot because everyone ran up there. No one saw anyone. And it's the railway men that would have seen someone, and Lee Bowers. But he said there was some sort of commotion, some sort of flash of light, and that's exactly what he saw. But there was no gunman like this.
But in the Wigman, you can see at the end of the Wigman, you can see smoke rising there above Elm Street, right after the country steps there, some people, think it could have been diversionary shots, like firecrackers, cherry bombs, or whatever. But and one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that modern weapons, even in that during those times, do not emit a lot of smoke when they're fired.
Right. That's more like a 1700s in the Revolutionary War. You might get smoke like that.
Yeah, because you've got smokeless powder, in those bullets, and I don't know what Jim's take is on this, but the creation there of diversionary shots, I think, and even Beverly Brunson, because she wrote extensively about that, was key, in, getting people to look, in other directions, in order to get the kill shots in by the real snipers, wherever they might have been.
And of course, it could have been that firecrackers were set off in addition to the sound passing through the windshield, and firecrackers, just little firecrackers, would leave smoke. And there were lots of people reported smelling what they took to be gun smoke, which could easily have been the residue from even little tiny firecrackers.
Even Yarborough has said that smoke permeated within the LBJ limo all the way to a Parkland.
Yeah, so we can't discount that it was present. The question is, what caused it? What explains it? What was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, when Gene Hills
a lot of people talked about that, the smell of gunpowder.
Yeah.
Now where that came from,
Yeah, I still believe when Gene Hill says that they saw up there, it was a diversionary flash, and so did everyone else saw it, and everyone ran up, and nobody saw anything because there was no one there. That's what I believe.
Well, very nice. Nice.
All right, y'all want to?
Yep.
All right.
Good videos there, Gary.
All right, y'all want to call it on? We just got a few minutes left.
Yep, we're good. We're good. We're good, my friend.
All right. Okay, we pull another JFK show out of our hat. This has been no. We have to give Larry all the kudos. That was a great report, and it's on.
Your blogs are just terrific, Larry. Just terrific.
So how does someone go to your blog, Larry? What would they type into the computer?
Oh, wow. Meredith.com/WP for WordPress.
Whoa. We'll have to put up a sign about that next week.
We'll
Next week
put it
we'll
up
have
with the show.
Yeah, you got it. All right. Great show, Dr. Fetzer. Great show, Larry. And I'm more than honored to be with you guys. And I think we made another dent. JFK